Welcome back to the program. Many thanks for staying with us. You are watching Daybreak. Remember, the hashtag is Daybreak. SMS line is 22422. So much to talk about, but let me refer you to the front page of, let's start with the front page of the Standard. Uhuru's night call that calmed Raila. ODM leader Raila Odinga had planned, according to the writer, to go back to his Kibra bedroom to discuss BBI politics. A call from his handshake partner froze the plans. Now, on the eve of its third anniversary, tomorrow is the third anniversary of the handshake, the pact may require more than just a call, and you can get more details on pages 4 and 5 of the Standard. Meanwhile, front page of the Daily Nation, Mudavadi Moi factor in 2022 plot. It's about succession, according to this headline. ODM leader Raila Odinga's allies have alleged a plan by state operatives to scuttle the handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta by supporting ANC or KANU, rather the ANC or KANU leader, for the presidency in next year's general election. Now, as I mentioned earlier, 2 weeks is a long time in, 1 day is a long time in politics. 2 weeks seems like a lifetime. Remember last week it was about, or the previous week, it was about Super Tuesday. We saw what looked like the coming together of a super alliance at State House. Then we had the by-elections. And after that, we are seeing something else, a hurriedly planned rally called off, disquiet, and unnamed powerful civil servants accused of trying to hijack the March 2018 handshake, which birthed the clamor for a constitutional amendment. That's what we want to get into at this moment, to get some reactions from my guests. And let me introduce them to you at this time. We have Maoka Maore, who is the Deputy Majority Whip in the National Assembly. Thanks for making time for us.
Thank you.
We also have Boni Halwale, former Senator, Kakamega County. Karibu sana.
Asante.
We have Edwin Sifuna, ODM Secretary General. And we are also expecting Priscilla Nyokabi, who is a commissioner with the National Gender and Equality Commission. To each of my guests, thank you so much for making time. And to our viewers, start sending in those questions. I know you have a lot of questions for my guests here this morning in terms of the high-octane politics that we are seeing. Honorable Sifuna, let me start with you. Your thoughts on the front page of the Standard and the Daily Nation. What's going on?
First, let's start with the Standard. I don't think it makes any sense that the president would call Raila Odinga to put off a rally that is essentially a BBI rally. Of course, we would not know the contents of a phone call between the two gentlemen, but I'm saying Raila was in the coast for almost a week, and he was doing essentially the same thing that he was going to do in Kibra, unless they're insinuating that the rally was more than what we had planned. Then I really don't understand why they would insinuate that somehow the phone call put off a rally. But as far as the Daily Nation goes, Wahiga, as you know, I have spent the better part of last month in Matungu for the campaigns in the by-election. And as SG of ODM, I'm extremely proud of how the party performed in Matungu. There is only one reason why we were not declared winners there, and it is because the ANC party's voter suppression tactics that were sponsored by the state worked very effectively. If you look at the numbers, and Khalwale was there, in the wards that ODM is strong, we have 5 wards in Matungu. Turnout was very, very low. In fact, the lowest turnout was in the ward where Honorable Were comes from. His ward is called Namamali ward. In Cholera, which the UDA candidate performed very well, the turnout was almost 67%. In a by-election, you know what that means. So it was the voter suppression tactics that were...
Can you give us more details?
So I'll give you details.
What do you mean by voter suppression tactics?
2 specific instances. There's a polling station called Monami polling station, where the ANC goons led by Honorable Malala, in the company of police officers, went there, actually assaulted and frog-marched the 2 ladies who are the presiding officers. We have them on video, they themselves telling the story. They were threatened with sexual violence all the time. Election material was taken out of the polling station. The ballot boxes containing the ballot papers were taken out of the polling station. And essentially, voting stopped. Incidentally, in that same polling station, the voter identification kit failed for almost 2 hours when polling began. So it took about another 1 hour for the polling kit to be replaced, and we were supposed to be added 2 more hours of voting in that particular polling station, but nothing happened. So that is one incident. Number 2, there was a polling station called Namayakalo, where after our candidate voted at around 10:30, we headed there and found these same goons had beat up people, and the women were running around the polling station. Essentially, voting had stopped. We made a call to the police officers, the people in charge of security in Matungu, and we waited there 45 minutes. There was no reinforcement coming, despite the fact that they were lying to us that the police were on their way. So it was a clear pattern. There was another one at Muira Primary School, which I can go on and go on. But it was a clear strategy.
And you've made all these complaints official to the authorities, to the
Which
IBC?
authorities? The authorities were the ones who were doing these things. It's like telling me to go and report the hyena to the hyena's court. We are saying these things in the court of public opinion, Mwaura, and we don't want to appear like we are crybabies. We are congratulating them that they had a better voter suppression strategy. And it is the most ridiculous thing, Mwaura, that the IEBC can actually declare somebody who assaulted its own officers as a winner. In fact, this is one of the strangest elections. I don't think even to the casual observer, this can pass for a free and fair election.
Before I allow Honorable Halwale to respond to that, does it concern you that we have a general election next year and such tactics?
Oh,
if even half of what you say is true,
it
as
is
ODM, should you not be concerned?
I cannot come on national TV to lie. And as I told you, I was there myself. I saw these are things that I perceived with my own senses. I was not told. I am extremely concerned, and especially for the IEBC. I don't know where they're going to find people to help them in the elections to be presiding officers and returning officers. If they can allow their own officers to be assaulted and yet go and declare the very people who assaulted their officials as winners, it is absolutely ridiculous. And we are hoping that lessons can be drawn from this particular by-election. But if indeed this is how to win elections, then I can guarantee you in 2022, every politician will be planning the same tactics that we saw Kina Malala executing in Matungu.
Honorable Halwale, election voter suppression tactics. I think is it a new term to you? Do you buy into anything that Honorable Sifuna has said this morning?
Allow me to say congratulations to the people of Matungu for exercising their civic duty at the by-election. Allow me also to congratulate IEBC for trying to manage what was something that was not controllable. The bottom line of what Sifuna is saying is that the election was not free and fair. Let me tell you, we've been around for a while. I can assure you that today, in any court of law, there is no presiding judge who would find that the winner in Matungu is known. Yes, we know who was announced, but we don't know who was the winner. Because, as Edwin Sifuna is saying, in Munami polling station and other polling stations, Munami because we captured Munami on video. In Munami polling stations, goons under the command of our senator of Kakamega actually carried away voting materials and frog-marched the presiding officer. So when you read an outcome from that polling station, are you reading the genuine votes that were cast by the people? So the bottom line is that Kenyans must be grateful that the by-election in Matungu occurred. It has given them an opportunity to ask themselves, what is likely to come in 2022? This nonsense of violence, and I'm glad now we are on the same page with ODM. When they visited violence on us in the Kibra by-election, they didn't complain because the deep state so-called system was for them. But this time, because Edwin Sifuna and co. did not have the deep state and the system, the shoe is now on the other foot. We must denounce violence completely. The outcome in Kakamega, if one day it will be known, and I think God knows who won, you will find that us who are in UDA, and by the way, we are very proud that we did so well, is because we were faced with our two opponents.
Some say you did not do as well as had been anticipated. Mauka Maore can't...
He will tell me. He will tell me. If you ask Mauka Maore where is Matungu, he will tell you he's in Vanga. So his opinion on Matungu cannot count here anything.
It's not about Matungu.
He seems to give you a B+ or a C, not an A.
Yes, yes. So the bottom line is that we must denounce violence. Look, IEBC could not conduct an election in Matungu. I know Rashid Ejasa, former sports minister, will appear in court probably today or tomorrow for a matter of a bitter exchange between him and the presiding officer, questioning why there was a malpractice in Bulonga polling station. But if it is right to arrest Rashid because of that bitter exchange, how about Malala, who came and frog-marched and a presiding officer from a polling station? They poked fingers at that woman in places that we don't want to mention on public TV. So I am saying that ODM and ANC should go and reflect. ODM should not complain too much, Sifuna, because you are using the county government. And ANC was using the national government. That was the only difference.
No, I think the exchange between...
Proceed.
Okay, you want to jump in, Honorable Maure?
Yes, I think what we need to worry about,
yes,
is that the difference between the election of 2017, especially the violence that was also visited on very many polling stations, happened to have the electioneering happened period started from 2018 up to now. So even when you say the IEBC or people should have a sacred season called the electioneering period, it isn't there, because a section of our political class decided to do continuous electioneering. So you don't tell the difference. But the most important part is the IBC. If you have rampant violence or interference with the freedom of the individual, or that somebody should go to a polling station, and when you enter that station, it should be protected. That one should be the business of IEBC to complain the loudest. Now, when they let it as a free-fall and they still announce the winner, that one is a problem that the country needs to be very worried about. So the number one problem is the IBC. The number two problem is the IBC, because even the other state organs on the day of elections or near the polling stations are subservient to the election rules.
The IBC that sits right now,
yes,
depleted in number, commissioners, etc., even budget, and they've complained in the past. Doesn't Parliament also have a role in ensuring that IBC is strengthened?
If they feel disabled, if they feel they are not able to execute their mandate, they should not do it half-heartedly. They should just say, we are not doing this by election because we don't have the capacity, or we don't have the numbers, or we don't have the money. But you cannot go and do it and just say, anyway, watch an petition too, because of those lame excuses. Those are lame excuses. A quorum of IBC is 3. That is allowed in law. They are 3. So these are the things about the problem are details. Again, we had only 2 by-elections at the parliamentary level. One commissioner would have been in one, another one would have been there. And again, they have not complained, saying that they were actually disabled in any way. They haven't complained. So if you hear the policeman went rogue, or Senator Malala went rogue, something should happen to them, the police and the senator and everybody else. Actually, they say the difference between the third world countries and a lot of crimes that we do, the developed world, when you do a crime, something happens to you. In our part of the world, or the third world, you might do a crime and get celebrated. So that is the difference.
Honorable Maure, and part of what happened last week seems to have fueled a lot of the conversation we saw this weekend about the stability of the handshake. You're actually quoted page 4 of the Standard. I don't know if you've read your quote there, and if you remember making that. You are quoted as saying, or you revealed that there were one quote is, in a political marriage, there must be normal commotion. It will be sorted. I can tell you that some government officials are not comfortable with ODM. And thus, there seems to be a discussion around whether government or whether Jubilee backed a candidate from a different party in Matungu, and that may be part of the reason why some ODM leaders have been speaking out against the handshake, speaking out against use of force, use of civil servants to influence the BBI 2022 succession. What was the backdrop to this message that you gave to the Standard?
Well, It depends on the question. When you are responding to a question, specific question, is about the commotion that is coming from our Handshake partners in the ODM about the problem that arose in these by-elections. That's number one. And number two, when the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, and the former prime minister went into Handshake in 2018, it was purely to make sure the country is stabilized, emanating from the chaotic elections of 2017. Now, that harmony, it has actually saved the country, especially the working in the parliament, and generally the running of government has been a very stable environment out of the Handshake. Because you will remember, within Jubilee, there is a lot of, it's like a Tower of Babel. That's how you would call it. So the president needed a helping hand from the ODM. In parliament.
And yet he had the majority. He still needed a helping hand.
No, I think you have not heard me. I've said when you become a Tower of Babel, it means you are not coherent. You are not cohesive. So the president needed a helping hand. He got it from the former prime minister. Now, all of a sudden, because of the transition horizon that is happening next year, a lot of people around him, that is the president, may be feeling they are clever enough or bestowed with the wisdom enough to think of discomfort with the former prime minister and his party, forgetting what stability he has brought to government. And for that reason, that is why the ODM is raising the red flag. Because if I'm helping you reluctantly, you shouldn't have hypocrisy about it. You should also reciprocate that we are working together and we move forward.
Sifuna, I want you to respond to that. And Priscilla Nyokabi, who's a commissioner with the National Gender and Equality Commission, joins us, and I'll be allowing you to speak shortly. Many thanks for making time for us. But I think you've referenced something with ODM, so Sifuna.
First of all,
come in. We saw a choreographed attempt at ODM. We saw Honorable Orengo, Honorable Junet issuing a series of statements that it seemed had come from one command center.
What I want to make clear is that ODM had no expectation at all that we would be supported by government in any of these by-elections, or that in fact in 2022 Uhuru will say Raila Tosha. That has been made clear more than enough times. Yeah. In fact, the only complaint we are raising is that in the quest for succession in 2022, the state should get out of politicians' ways. That is all. Let's allow the politicians to do politics, to be able to sell their agenda, and whoever emerges winner, wins. Let the will of the people prevail. So, for instance, our biggest complaint in Matungu is not that the government did not support ODM. No. We are saying that the state machinery was used to prop up Musalia Mudavadi. And it is, something that is clearly aligned to the 2022 succession, because in Matungu, we said that what we were looking for is a member of parliament to serve the people of Matungu. But the ANC and, the Niwachie Alliance were making it clear that Matungu was about 2022, that in fact, the person who won would have, what they used to call airtime or something like that, that it would give strength to Musalia Mudavadi's bid for 2022. And that is just a true fact. So, in fact, Matungu residents were being treated to all these things just to prop up somebody who everybody knows is not going to be president, even if he's supported by the entire state. So, we are saying...
I think that you leave to the voters.
I am a voter,
they have the final
so I can also speak
so
as a voter. Don't forget that I am a voter, and I represent a few of those voters, Maura. So I can speak for some of them. Number two, I need you to separate the issues of the handshake and the issues of the 2022. When Honorable Junet spoke, he spoke as the co-chair of the BBI Secretariat, and it is true that the Secretariat, and I'm sure Priscilla can also, talk to that. The Secretariat feels that it has been hampered in its operations because the State Department of Internal Security is basically running the show when it comes to BBI matters. It has been unable to free the Secretariat to be able to do its job. So when Junet speaks, you should not say it is choreographed with what Honorable Orengo is saying. Orengo was talking to what we have been discussing here, that in fact there are people within the state organs who feel that they have a say in the 2022 succession, and that they're trying to prop up certain people to appear as if they are the preferred successors of President Uhuru Kenyatta. I personally believe they have a right, people in government as well, they have a right to have an opinion on who they think should succeed the president. But what we are saying is that they should not get actively involved the way in which they got involved in Matungu. They should get out of the way so that politicians can be able to have access to the voters and convince them who's the best person.
Briefly, because I want to bring in Honorable Nyakam.
Yes, I think, I think very quickly what happened is that the issue of the Secretariat, we need to understand the calendar and the sequence and the environment on which they are operating. If you remember in December when we started collecting the signatures, after collecting the signatures, we handed over them to the IEBC. After IEBC, to the county assemblies. After county assemblies, to Parliament. In between December and the end of March, the Secretariat has actually almost zero work. Because it is not the Secretariat that was coordinating with the county assemblies. It is not the Secretariat that actually is bringing it to Parliament. Those are things that actually, in between, you may not blame maybe the office of the president as it's appearing in the media. The best thing is to understand after the Parliament is now when we should raise this issue now and bring in the politicians. And in many places, you may also need the government institutions to assist. But it should be politically guided. It should be guided by the politicians.
Okay. Yeah. Honorable Nyakabi, thanks again for joining us this morning. And Sifuna alluded to the possibility that the Secretariat has been hampered in its work, not funded as well, and that could be part of what is raising the jitters we saw this past weekend. What do you read of this?
No, well, I'm happy to get into that conversation, but I was hoping you would remember that today is International Women's Day.
I do remember, and I will give you a chance to talk about that.
And we'll start there.
That is coming. That is coming.
Because
yes.
I was following the conversation, and one of the regrets around the Matugu is actually the violence, and violence to women, in particular the electoral officers. I think that's very regrettable. And we are hoping that there will be accountability for that violence. I mean, the language used was extremely, extremely bad, and that is a big regret. I don't know why our by-elections are becoming the most lawless events around, and I think it's getting worse. From the days of Kibra, it's like we're going downhill, so that needs to be addressed. But then on this other question around the Secretariat, and Mheshimiwa raises a good point around sequencing of events. You know that in Article 257 on the popular initiative, there is a sequence of events. And so it is actually just that you sequence the events. You have the signatures, then you have the assemblies, then you have the National Assembly and Senate, which is where we are now going. The bill is now before the National Assembly and Senate. And then after that, now you have the civic education, or the sort of yes and no. You know, IEBC sets the question, and that is when we will see the Secretariat in a big way. We are particularly hoping ourselves that the women get particular structures around which to then engage in this conversation, looking at the 2/3 gender rule and the matters that have been addressed. But you know, politics being what it is, in my community, we usually say, ukieka 2 axes in one bag, hazitakosa kugongana. So when the axes are hitting each other, it is just that the axes are in one bag. Sometimes we are reading too much, you know, out of axes scratching each other. That's just as happens in politics.
You see nothing more than just jitters?
Nothing more than that. Usually it gets corrected. I mean, we are in a big handshake. So, you know, once in a while, some things like what happened this weekend happen, but the bigger vision remains. And the big vision is the handshake, the big vision is the BBI, the big vision is the constitutional reforms that are coming, and the need for legitimacy of that constitutional review process. So therefore, need for as many Kenyans as possible to participate. And we're going to go into that phase. So here, Sifuna hii, tusisome sana, wataelewana. Junet na Dennis na everybody, wataelewana tu.
Honorable Halwala, before you respond, having looked at what happened last week in those by-elections, Honorable Nyakabi, what are your concerns for 2022? Next year, actually, not very far down.
The major one
is on the political front.
The major one is IEBC. For us, the structure of IEBC, the electoral management body, is everything. And we think that it is now extremely urgent that IEBC is strengthened. I think that there is a sense in which 3 commissioners are struggling, 3 commissioners for a nation of 47 million. We've long been through those arguments. And we are not India. We are not where 3 commissioners can manage 1 billion people. We are Kenya. So let us address these matters. Our full commission is 7. I think as early as possible, the commission should be strengthened. The other one is electoral laws and electoral offenses. We want to see proper concentration around that. And we are getting worried with IEBC for gender, because if you look at the BBI, the 2/3 gender rule has now been pushed to parties. The ODM and the Jubilee and all the parties will have to give a list that is 2/3 compliant. The person to enforce that list is the IEBC. So when the IEBC is not strong, we are not happy. When the IEBC has no woman commissioner, we are also not very happy. So the first and immediate goal is going to be to strengthen the IEBC IEBC to take charge of the next year's phase. And hopefully with the politicians, we came very close in BBI to defining an electoral year, which is the year before the election. So these very heightened campaigns should not be now. It should be as late as August, as late as 6 months to the election, which means February of next year, 2022. This is not an election year. Let us not make 2021 an election year. What we've now done is actually make 2021 an election year. So now we have 2 election years. 2021 is an election year, and 2022 is an election year. And you know, going by Kenyan standard, 2023 might also be an election year. So
years.
now we need to stop. Election year is next year, not this year.
Is it too late, however, to stop? Anyway, Honorable Alwalo, I know I need to take a break,
but
we
can take a reverse gear.
Can we take a reverse gear? I know a lot has been said, and I'm sure you want to respond to some of the sentiments made this morning.
Yes, very quickly, I want to request my sister Nyokavi. You are a lawyer, and you know that the minimum number of commissioners required to run IEBC is 3, and they're there.
But the full
So if a marriage is not working, don't go for the woman because she's the weaker one in the relationship and blame her.
Is she the weaker one?
The point is this.
Honorable Alwalo, on International Women's Day.
We cannot blame IEBC for the violence in Matungu, the violence in Kebra, the violence anywhere. IEBC, in fact, was a victim. And you have described it in that woman. We blame the police. We blame Matiang'i and Kibicho, and blame the president, because they're the ones who have the tools that manage force. To go away and start thinking that elections will be violence-free by increasing the number of commissioners, you are missing the point. And I respect you. Number 2, the issue that I saw in Matungu and in the London ward was very refreshing to me, who doesn't believe in tribalism, to this extent. It clearly told you that if you want to win because of your tribe, you'll need a lot of support from somewhere, deep state system, whatever. And that's why people like Mudavadi, to get that announcement in Matungu, it has visited so much violence to his people. I have no idea what he is thinking about the husband of that woman, about the family of the 2 people who were shot, about the family of the youth who was knifed. I don't know what he's thinking about it as a son of that region. Number 3, and finally, the noise in the handshake. Maoga Maore, with due respect, if you are saying it is thanks to Handshake that government is being run well, you are therefore telling us that for the period that it has, in quotes, run well, it was being run by a criminal enterprise. Under the Constitution of Kenya, there is no provision that government shall be run by something nondescript called handshake. We owe it to the youth that we be seen to be pushing for the right way of doing things than taking shortcuts, so that echoes, like you are saying, you have said it in the papers, now Nyokabi is talking about the noise, access knocking each other. You are justifying an illegality. President Uhuru must all the time run the republic using the Constitution of Kenya and the laws of the country. Look, you might not want to say it here. There are 2 reasons why there is this noise. These secretariat things that are being raised by Junet and Orengo, they're just falling short of telling you that there is no organized way of us eating public funds.
Okay, that is...
Can I, don't fear hard statements. We are politicians.
You're putting words in people's mouths that haven't been spoken yet.
The second one is that it is dawning on Sifuna and Co. that what they expected out of the handshake, i.e., for it to deliver Raila into State House, it might not happen.
We have not said that.
I mean,
let him finish. I'll give you a chance to respond. I'll give you
take a hot
He says
point.
that he's going off.
he's getting off the rail.
Give him 1 more minute to finish. Go ahead.
Because the president was very clear he wanted to manage Raila. He's done very well. And because Raila was very hopeful that using Handshake, he would make it easier for himself to accede to power. And it's dawning on them that it's not going to happen. This is why you see this noise, kelele, and manenos, and so on.
Okay.
No, I
Can
think
we need to take that break. Otherwise, everyone will keep. And let's take a quick break. I will give you each a chance to respond to what's been said.
Yeah, okay.
You're watching Daybreak. Stay with us. My goodness, it is the atmosphere in this studio. The temperature is something else. Keep sending in your messages. 22422 is the SMS line. Hashtag is Daybreak. And I actually have a message here that I'll give Sifuna and Halwale a message to respond to when we come back. Gadara asks this. Daybreak. Interesting to hear folks like Honorable Sifuna, Honorable Mtetezi Boni, that's you, complaining about the problems with the voting system and state interference in elections when they have completely failed to pursue comprehensive and systematic electoral reform since 2017. I'm sure they'll want to respond to that and much more when we come back. You're watching Daybreak. Stay with us. We'll be right back.